Hey, this is Ivan, and today, for first time, I'm gonna steal someone else's content for the Play the Player channel. That would be a good observation about the modern society and where all this debate, polarization, and opinionated opinions came from. And here it is, Chris Knight from the Radical Anthropology reading some data and giving some lecture. So now in the next 5 minutes, if this is of your interest, it's about anthropology, sexist, feminism, masculinity, and matriarchy. Very, very interesting topic. So let's go forward from the first minute forward. Let's hear what Chris Knight has to say and how he will reflect on a bunch of books, and he will quote some authors. Let's go ahead.
Sex life and matrilineal life in these rather idyllic islands, idyllic in the sense that the way he inspired people with the possibility of sexual liberation, writing about the Tobin Downwards. But when he came back to England, he became a kind of moral guardian, a custodian of the morals of society. And he wrote that even in our own home, we now feel threatened. And what he meant by that was that a man could feel threatened by his wife and daughters becoming suffragettes or feminists. It made him feel rather insecure. And so I'll just read this out because this is actually from Malinowski. He's having a debate on this whole topic we're discussing this evening. Did matriarchy ever exist? It's a radio debate. I think the year was 1931. And he says this. Okay, now the reason I'm reading this out, I want you to hear the father of modern anthropology speaking to you about his views on this topic we're discussing this evening. And perhaps read behind the lines. Why is he saying this? What's motivating him? A whole school of anthropologists, from Beethoven on, Beethoven the author of Das Mutterrecht, Motherland, a whole school of anthropologists have maintained that the maternal clan was the primitive domestic institution. In my opinion, as you know, this is entirely incorrect, but an idea like that, once it is taken seriously and applied to modern conditions, becomes positively dangerous. I believe that the most disruptive element in the modern revolutionary tendencies is the idea that parenthood can be made collective. If once we came to the point of doing away with the individual family as the pivotal element of our society, we should be faced with a social catastrophe compared with which the political upheaval of the French Revolution and the economic changes of Bolshevism are insignificant. The question, therefore, as to whether group motherhood is an institution which ever existed, whether it is an arrangement which is compatible with human nature and social order, this question is of considerable practical interest. And he went on.
Okay, here I'm gonna pause a little bit just for YouTube not to pick up my plagiarism here, because I'm stealing the content here from this guy, and actually I'm gonna continue, but I will tell you what is this. This is Chris Knight giving a lecture on the topic, did matriarchy ever exist? And this is on September 25th 2018. So now I hope that I'm gonna confuse YouTube with this little interruption of mine. I will not reflect on that. I would like you to take the sound of the video that I'm playing, and let's go forward. I hope that I'm gonna confuse YouTube, yeah?
Just say that he would devote his rest of his life to proving to the best of my ability that marriage and the family have been, are, and will remain the foundations of human society. So I'm just saying, this was the dispassionate scholar, the objective scholar, the disinterested scholar who changed the whole trajectory of thinking about the history of the family and the history of relationships between the genders. Right. One of the things which happened to me in terms of thinking about things and reading stuff was in the very early 80s, and I got in touch with an anthropologist called Tim Buckley, and he'd been studying a group of Native Americans around the Klamath River on the far western coast of the States in California. And one evening in 1978, he was invited to the house of a local informant for a meal. Buckley's male friend explained that he would be doing the cooking since his Yurok wife was on her moon time, in her menstrual period, and they were keeping the old ways as best they could. A back room had been set apart in the modern house for his wife's monthly use. The couple neither ate nor slept together for 10 days each moon. Well, he was there talking to his Buckley was there talking to his friend when the friend's wife emerged from her room to talk with Buckley about what she was doing and how she felt about it, because these people were obviously modern people. They all kinds of car mechanics and bungalows and caravans and making a living in different ways, but they were in the movement of revival, trying to get back to their old ways. And this woman said that she had been instructed in the menstrual laws by her maternal aunts and grandmother, who were in their times well-known conservative, traditional Yurok ladies. And she began her account by telling Buckley that as a foster child in non-Indian houses, she'd been taught what people in the West had normally taught, which of course is that menstruation is embarrassing, bad and shameful, and that through it women are being punished. This is of course the Adam and Eve story. But on her return to Yurok society, however, she says, my aunts and my grandmother taught me different. According to the old menstrual laws, a woman should seclude herself during the flow because, quotes, this is the time when she is at the height of her powers. Such time should not be wasted in mundane tasks and social distractions, and certainly not in concerns with the opposite sex. Rather, all of one's energies should be applied in concentrated meditation to find out the purpose of your life. Menstruation is a time for the accumulation of spiritual energy, the flowing blood serving to purify the woman and prepare her for spiritual accomplishment. In the old days, according to this informant, menstruating women used to communally bathe and perform rituals in a sacred noontime pond up in the mountains above the old Yurok village. While many girls performed this rite only at the time of their first menstruation, conservative women went to the pond every month. All of a household's fertile women who were not pregnant menstruated at the same time, a time dictated by the moon, the women practicing their bathing rituals together at this time. If a woman got out of phase with the moon and with the other women of the household, she could get back in by sitting in the moonlight and talking to the moon, asking it to balance her. Through the ritual bathing practice and by maintaining synchrony with wider rhythms, women came to see that the earth has her own moon time, a recognition that made one both stronger and proud of one's menstrual cycle. And just as the women used to collectively...
Okay, so I'm gonna make another interruption again for YouTube not to catch my plagiarism here, and I want to give you another point here. In some of these societies, we are talking about this guy here, Chris Knight. He's talking about societies way before our modern society, not recent Western society, not Egyptian society and Egyptian kingdom, and this is way before the known recorded civilization that we know of. The last 6,000 or so years recorded history, we will have this assumption that we only have 6,000 to 7,000, maybe, who knows, 10,000 years recorded history. The first documentation, the first documents are kind of 6,000 years old. But I would like to point your attention to how this make sense of what this guy is talking with, also with the theory of Rollo Tomassi about menstrual cycles of the female, and there's a pretty interesting topic of Rollo Tomassi talking on the 21 convention about this menstrual cycles and how they change the woman behavior. Very interesting topic. I believe everyone who is a man should know a little bit about, if not a lot about that. Also, I do have a friend that once he suggested to me if you are a man and if you are in a relationship, you should have this app. The app is designed for women. It is just to help them not to forget about their menstrual cycle, because of course in this busy environment and this busy world that we live in, some women do not keep track of their natural menstrual cycles, and sometimes they get into a relationship or into random sex or into one night stand, and they make this crucial mistake. Now let me allow myself to somehow point your attention that these things, these natural things about menstrual cycles, female nature, matriarchy, patriarchy, they are all somehow very, very related. These are very natural things. So let's go ahead and further listen to Chris Knight from the Radical Anthropology about this stuff. Let's hear a little bit more.
Draw from sexual circulation for 10 days, the men had to sort of vaguely keep up. And so, as if imitating the women, the men bathed and gathered firewood, and avoiding sexual contacts, ate special foods and let flow their own blood. See, they got quartz crystals and they gassed their legs. So they're saying, yeah, we can bleed too. And the flowing of the blood was thought to carry off psychic impurity, preparing one for spiritual attainment. Men who were in special training to become healers secluded themselves in the sweat house and made medicine. And the anthropologist provides evidence that the medicine baskets and dentalium shells used by men to contain their power tokens were symbolic vaginas. And elderly Europe men told Buckley that intensive male training was always undertaken during the dark of the moon, which was the time when, according to tradition, women were also synchronously menstruating. And finally, there's evidence that specific features in Europe's sweat house construction. Sweat houses, these sort of lodges. I'll read out some myths about these kinds of lodges in a moment. And these, the way they were built, permitted accurate observation of yearly, solar and lunar cycles in each village, while the women's menstrual houses included large communal dome-shaped structures heated by fires, used for sweating and capable of sheltering several women at a time. And then, following an analysis on the literature of the Yurok, including previously unpublished field notes, because it's just strange how these things get lost in translation. You can have all sorts of informants telling you this stuff, but somehow the men dealing with this stuff and publishing articles manage to lose all the information about how menstruation can be empowering and get the other stuff unpublished, and all that somehow disappears. But Buckley reconstructed, looked back in the libraries and got all these original field notes out, and concluded that there has been a consistent male bias in published interpretations of Yurok menstrual symbolism, and that his female informant's claims should be taken seriously. He found reason to believe that indeed the women of Aboriginal Yurok households menstruated in synchrony, utilizing the light of the moon to regularize their menstrual cycles. If this were the case, Buckley writes, then it would follow that the menstrual synchrony and power of women not only influenced ritual life, but had, this is a quote, profound pragmatic implications as well in dictating the temporal structuring of activities for entire households on a monthly basis. So just sort of translate that, the entire community had a clock, and the clock was the moon, and which phase the moon was in determined what was happening, what rituals you were performing, whether you're hunting or feasting, whether you're cooking or not cooking, whether you're bathing, all these different things. The moon was the basic clock, and that clock, of course, was not just up there in the sky, it was in every woman's body, and women would make sure that they were in tune with that clock. And of course, you know, it's not all that easy. Sometimes you can get out of tune, but what she said was that the woman would just sit out all night in the light of the moon, hoping that the light of the moon itself would help to bring her back into synchrony. And all I want you to do now is just, of course, this is just one informant. This is just a woman saying things about the past, and maybe, you know, you might think, okay, why would we believe? For the moment, I don't care about that. I just want you to think about it as a thought experiment. Imagine a world made for women. I think most of you will agree that this world we live in today is a world made for people who don't have periods. It insists that you act during a menstrual period much like any other day. You could argue that it's for people who don't have periods, which means it's a world made for persons with penis and testicles. Imagine a different world, which is a periodic world, where the clock in your body is the clock which makes the world turn round. It's just a thought experiment, but when I heard about all this, it got me thinking. So we have clocks, of course. The clocks we've always evolved with are two in the sky, the sun and the moon. And there's no doubt that both are extraordinarily important. But there's also no doubt that for hunters and gatherers, although day and night matters, it's difficult to hunt at night if you haven't got any light, and the seasons are important, of course. The magic clock, the clock which governs ritual, the clock which brings hunting luck, is the moon. I don't know of any hunter-gatherer culture where the men would pray to the sun for hunting luck, but to pray to the moon to give you light is kind of standard. Of course, we have clocks. We have these ones here. I've got one on here, and I kind of call these time is money clocks. They were invented to save time, to make sure that you're not wasting time, perhaps leave aside all that. But simply because that would probably take the time. Getting to 7:30, I've got a little under half an hour to finish.
Okay, so this is today's video, and this is a reflection on anthropologist. His name is Chris Knight. The lecture is called "Did Matriarchy Ever Exists?" This is from 25th September of 2018, and I'm just throwing this at you as a man, if you are a man, just to have a little bit different perspective on the relationship of you to the female body. I think it's a good topic to reflect on. No information is no information is wrong. I'm not saying that this is the right information, but I'm just saying that the more information you have as a man, the better for you. I'm not suggesting you should act upon the information I'm giving you. I'm just saying that it's good to have the information to have more kind of around it, or so-called holistic opinion in this world of highly polarized debates. So that's it for today from Play the Player channel. I would end up as usual, be a player or be played, and in this term, be a player should mean gather as much information. That's all I mean. Gather as much information, create well-rounded, holistic opinion in relationship to dealing with the opposite sex. If you're a guy, even if you're a woman, that is a good starting point to have more information. So that's it. Subscribe to the channel if you think this kind of talk make any sense, or if you have a friend in need, or some guy that is lost and he doesn't know how to talk to a woman, approach a woman, deal with the woman in all kinds of varieties and intricacies of life, such as dating, long-term relationship, marriage situation. And here I am to give you slightly different perspective. It might be for you. Subscribe to the channel and send this link to a friend. Thank you.